Hi, I'm here with Brian Patterson of Emergence.
Emerge Alliance?
Yes, Emerge Alliance. And you're a nonprofit organization, you were telling me.
Yeah, we started back in 2008. Actually, at the time, I was at Armstrong World Industries, which is a supplier of building materials and for commercial buildings and so on, and started looking at power and electricity in
Yeah,
buildings and discovered photovoltaics and discovered even early storage at the time
right.
and started experimenting with that on the basis of the green initiatives, and environmental initiatives. Since then, we've kind of grown into outside the building, campuses, then of course neighborhoods and communities and so
Right.
on and so forth. So what we're trying to do is establish what we call vanguard standards, advanced standards to sort of shape the industry
Hmm.
forward in some of the new technologies, which are now available uniquely to the whole power industry. That for 100 years didn't change very much, but now it's going through this
Well,
rapid
yeah, the
change.
transition. I mean, the technology, the innovation that's taking place, things are getting faster, better, stronger.
Yeah. And at the same time, it can be confusing for
Yeah.
people, because we kind of used to what existed for so many years.
Hmm.
And now it's very different. And there were a few things, big things that changed things. Storage, of course, changed, and PV, because they were actually electronic technologies in the sense that they use DC power and not AC power. So they gave birth to things like inverters and all that kind of stuff that can convert power back and forth, AC and DC.
Right.
And more and more things now are going DC.
Yeah.
AI is all DC.
Yeah.
Heat pumps and things like that are going DC
Yeah.
with DC motors, brushless DC motors, sort of like the same implements at your home that you use for
Yeah.
gardening, battery driven. A lot of the world is going over to this. I'll call it almost digital electricity,
Okay.
more DC instead of AC. But we dare not, forget that we have this enormous system that is AC. So the challenge is to integrate these two very different technologies and to try to teach people in the industry, both new and old, how they need to be integrated as a hybrid. And we'll see over time, maybe over 20, 30 years, it might shift more in one direction or the other, but we'll see how that
You'll be
plays out.
ready for that when that happens.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole
How?
point.
So, what are you hoping to get out of today's ETC conference?
Really, two things. This is a great conference, of course, and it covers all of Canada. And Canada, much like where I'm from in the US, has its challenges with the grid. And I guess in Canada, there are multiple grids across the country, and it's a very large country.
Right.
And it's got its own unique, challenges. So one of the things is to provide some insight as to what is already existing in new technology, but what's coming also. So, talking about the greater use of DC, integration of hybrid systems, DC coupling, and so on and so forth. So that's one thing. I'm also helping RE Plus. So we're a partner of RE Plus. The Emerge Alliance is a partner of RE Plus, and we do the live microgrid demonstrations at their shows. And this is, of course, that is co-hosted by RE Plus and others here. So we have a new resource that we've worked on with RE Plus and one of our members called RE Plus Source Pro. And what Source Pro is an AI facilitated industry catalog that allows people to find things in this very rapidly changing and evolving industry. Because you can come to trade shows, but you can still get lost here. There's so much to see.
Yes.
Um, and I hope that people do get to experience, because I just walked the show myself, and it's enormously diverse in
Yeah.
what's here.
I'm blown away.
Yeah. So, but you may not discover everything that you need to know by the time you walk out the door. So one of the things is Source Pro. It's available during the show, but it's also available 24/7, 365. So it has the capability of continuing dialogues with maybe some of the people that you've met at the
Hmm.
show,
Hmm.
as well as discovering new people that you didn't even get a chance to do. And it has a conceptual design platform built into it, so you can at least get up to the concept level of a microgrid or power systems.
Right.
We mostly are looking at the scale, I'll say, downstream of the substation. So we're not in the medium voltage, high voltage transmission and large scale distribution. But once you get to that substation, a lot of things are changing downstream. You see data centers and homes now with EVs and heat pumps and
Yeah.
all this electrification. I think one of the things that we're seeing that I don't think most people realize yet is a huge discussion going on about AI and how
That
AI
was
is
my next
impacting.
question. I was literally going to ask you that. So,
Yeah, that's the one thing that people say, "Oh, we're going to need 50% more power." And I go, up, up, up.
yeah.
I said, because really what we're talking about so far is just a centralized AI, which is sort of like the cloud of intelligence.
Okay.
But when you apply AI at the edge, like in your home, in your car, in your robots, or whatever, there's an enormous amount of power that's going to be needed for that. And it's very reminiscent
Just
for
to run the
me,
AI. Sorry.
just to run the AI.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the AI and the cooling that you have to do because it's all microprocessors. The AI processors are about 4 to 10 times more power hungry than the typical CPU in your computer.
Interesting.
So, because it's doing parallel processing, so it's processing 4 to 10 times faster and more than what you would normally do in a computer, which is kind of a serial or linear processing.
Right.
So it needs to be cooled because there's a lot of power that has to be dissipated. That
Mhm.
transistors turning on and off, right? So it's a lot like your body because your brain. Most people don't realize of the 2,000 or so calories you take in, 25 to 40% of that is used to run your brain. And people don't realize, no, they thought it's for the muscles and the
All
so I can
right.
jog
We
and
never
do the
think of
marathon.
that. Yeah.
But no, it's and the your heart, and your heart is your cooling system in part for your brain as well.
Yeah.
So when you think about the future of robotics, intelligence, and so on, think of it not only as central intelligence, which would be, as I say, clouds and data centers, but also right at the edge, right in your home, in your car.
Yeah.
I happen to have an experimental robot in my house that I'm participating in a program to try to understand what happens when you put robots in home and as
Oh,
a
wow.
personal assistant
Can
and
it
so on and so forth.
can it do laundry and
Not
keep it?
yet, yet, not yet. I think we're headed in that direction, but it was really to understand the dynamic of having a robot there that has limited
Yes.
capability, but to start to understand the demands of the robot.
Right.
You say,
Does
"Oh, you
that
just
need
plug it in."
it needs
Oh, no.
energy.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
needs energy, it needs training, it needs a lot of things. It needs discipline.
Right.
It's like a little kid, you got to teach it and so on and so forth. And obviously, there's obvious concerns that some people might use it in a malicious way, but
Yeah.
by and large, I think that the value of robotic assistance is going to be the same as 100 years ago when the cotton gin was invented to pick cotton instead of having to pick it
It's
by
true.
hand.
Yeah.
And it'll change the way we live, and it'll change a lot of things, but it also will move society forward if we use it right. So.
Well, yeah.
So we need to be very cognizant. Now, people are saying we need 50% more power. I think that's a way, way low estimate. Because I remember going through the internet days and when we first got the internet and we had some apps that we could use. And then all of a sudden it exploded. I remember the .com explosion and all that kind of stuff. And today, 70% of what goes over the internet is created on your cell phone,
Yeah.
you
It's
know?
true.
So it's all moved
Yeah.
to the edge.
Yeah.
So we have to think about that in terms of power demands in the future for AI and other things that AI will allow you to do in your home and in your place of work and so on that I don't think has been scaled yet. So I'm predicting in probably in the next 10 to 20 years that we're probably looking at more like 5 to 10 times as much power as we need, as we're using today.
And that's the grid as well. The grid has to get ready for that.
Well, and the grid may not be up to it in its entirety. So we need to also look at how to redesign
Efficiencies?
the rib. No, it's not so much efficiency. It's centralization versus distributed power. So as you need to have power at the edge, you're better off in many cases, not all cases, having that power generated near the edge. Now that's where I'm starting with small scale nuclear all the way down to individual vehicle to grid and
Right.
solar panels on your home and all that. So we call that all the edge power, right?
Mhm.
So I think there's over time going to be a balance of, I'm just going to say arbitrarily, 50% of the power will come from the edge, 50% from the central. We need to pay attention to both.
Right.
So fear not, it's not a contest between, edge power and microgrids versus central grid. It's complementary. We need to focus
Yeah.
on
We all
it
have to.
being a hybrid system
Right.
and people going off and doing one-off designs and things at the edge that can eventually be complementary to the grid, I think we'll find that that's not a good strategy. That a better strategy is whatever you do at the edge, make sure it's going to eventually complement what the total grid does.
Hmm.
And that way we end up with a bidirectional, really mesh network instead of a point to point network, which is
Yeah.
more like the internet.
So how has, there's so many great people here in organizations. How has ETC helped you grow and learn more?
Well, it's very similar to around the world. The great thing about coming to Canada is that you share a lot of similarities with the US, but you also have things that you do differently. And because of the expanse of the country,
Right.
there are multiple grids in Canada and there's only three in the United States. So there are differences, but we can learn a tremendous amount from each other.
Mhm.
So that's part of it. And really, I like to think of our effort at Emerge being more international.
Mhm.
In fact, we're very deep discussions with other organizations similar to Emerge around the world, in Asia and Korea, in Japan, in Germany, and in France, and England, so on and so forth. And everybody is moving down this path of the future. And we're saying, hey, we to move faster, we need to really stay in step with each other and share information and work more as a coalition
Yeah.
and so on. So I think the international cooperation beyond what is traditional, the traditional ways of doing that are through the standards organizations that already exist in Canada and other countries, the IEEE, the IEC, all these traditional standards organizations. One of the challenges for traditional standards organization has been velocity.
Okay.
The velocity that this industry is moving at is so fast. You can't move in a way that takes too long to establish standards because by then the herd is already out in the field and you're trying to bring them back into the pen. So what we need to do, and that's why we call our standards Vanguard standards, but rather than make them proprietary, we offer them up to anybody, whether it's an industry association, or something like the IEEE or IEC
Right.
or ANSI or whatever. We just give them our standard to use as a sort of a beginning point.
Yeah.
Sort of this do
Sharing.
what you will with it. It's not proprietary. We're making it available to everybody, but we're trying to think ahead a little bit more, think systemically, critical thinking about the future and how it all kind of comes together eventually. Because there is a tendency to do a little bit of knee jerking when you have problems of supply and demand that's so critical.
Yeah.
As I listened to the opening here last night, the people talking about how energy so much underwrites commercial success and commerce. And if you want a strong country, strong Canada, you really have to pay attention to energy and electricity in particular.
You do.
Um,
And that's why this industry is so exciting and everyone's willing to learn, everyone's willing to chip in and figure this out.
yeah, and a lot of people were a little bit concerned that because the industry really started out on an environmental footing,
Mhm.
mostly wanting to be a sustainable and clean energy kind of a future. The commercial side is underwrites and creates the wealth that's necessary to fund the well-being, as you might think of it. So it's very important not to leave the importance of commerce and commercial success and economy behind. You have to combine that with the environmental drive. And sometimes it's like anything else. It's a pendulum. Maybe more environmental from time to time, and more commercial or commerce driven, and so on and so forth. And that's exactly, again, I keep going back to the internet because I say we already have the blueprint. The internet is our blueprint.
Mhm.
We have maybe a different material, a different pile of wood as a carpenter would say, but it's the same blueprint. Now, let's take what was successful about building the internet and apply it to energy. And I think we'll be able to move much faster and with something much more sustainable for the future.
Great examples. I'm so excited and happy
Yeah.
that you're here, and, I hope you get a lot out of it today, Brian.
Yeah, and if anybody it does come to the show here or wants to go online, the RE Plus Source Pro will be demonstrating it down in the booth at
Okay.
1202, I think is our booth. So you can come down and take a look at how that works. And again, our effort there in conjunction with the RE Plus is to provide an accelerant to design.
Right.
One of the big challenges is how fast we can move because this challenge of supply and demand is upon us. It's not a future thing. It's not like we can wait for 5 or 10 years. It's
Now.
now. It's now. Yeah.
Right.
And we all have competition around the world, as you know. And so Canada, the US, whatever, and particularly in North America, we have challenges outside of our country. And if we don't s- keep pace with those, with commerce of the world, we'll end up being second world countries instead of primaries.
Yeah, yeah. Keep that momentum going.
Exactly, exactly.
Wonderful.
It was great to hear the leaders in the Canadian community here really talk about that key connection
Mhm.
between commerce and economy and the success of the country. That it was really a national and a national initiative and one that would make a more secure Canada.
It's wonderful. Okay, Brian, enjoy the rest of your day,
Okay,
and, thanks for talking by.
thank you for the
Alright.
opportunity.
You
Thank
go.
you.
Thank you.